Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. The show today is going to be about, we're going to start out with the mishap that's happening, we know, with Donald Trump lying about how bad the disease was, how bad the transmission was, just about what Woodward spoke in the book. Yes, we're going to talk about that, but we're going to also have Greg Palast. Anyhow, but I want to get something here. I mean, and Michael Rudnan starts it very well. Welcome, Michael Rudnan. Welcome, APM. Okay? It goes as follows. He says, a question I don't have a good answer for. Why did Bob Woodward wait to release this information? Back in February, there were plenty of questions about how the deadly coronavirus was and how it would be transmitted. What is really all that lethal? You could catch it through the air. Some experts said it probably wasn't airborne. Few seem to have definitive answers, but the nation's most famous celebrity journalist knew, and knew the president did too, but decided not to tell anyone. And nearly 200,000 Americans have died since. This is the story of Bob Woodward, the man who earned fame and fortune uncovering the Watergate scandal, and now the man who decades later was informed by the President of the United States that a pandemic was deadly and airborne, and decided to hold that information for 7 months so he could juice his book sales at a more opportune, closer time. I think that came, I don't know if those are your words or if that came from Jacobin. I think that came from Jacobin. If it's so, anyway. That is so true. And we are going to discuss that. We're going to discuss that very important piece after we show some of these particular videos. But folks, before I get started, I want to ask you all, please go ahead and share this program. Thank you. It's a quote from the article. Share this program right now on your wall, on your Facebook page, on your Twitter, on your Tumblr, everywhere else. It's important that we get this message out. Right now, what's going on is the president is in the midst of a news conference where he's lining up the gazoo. And one of the things that notion that just came from Rudnan out of that article, one of the interesting things about it is, believe it or not, Woodward is being used as the stand post, as the post for Donald Trump, because of that exact reason that Rudnan just pointed out from the Jacobin article. And it's important that we take that into account. It's not only the president that has to be held accountable here. It's all the sycophants and the media included. But we'll take that in a little bit. But we have to include the media as well, because he hit that article hit the money on the head. Anyhow, what is the program about today? We have a very, very, very important program, and let me go ahead and get started by bringing forth the program. Para ver, lo tengo que poner aquí primeramente. Okay, here we go. Title of the show is Trump's Defense of His COVID Failure Slammed. Greg Palast, Voter Suppression, ACL Report. Those are the two things. The Lieutenant Governor of Michigan's Garlin Gilchrist did not mince his words. Neither did Chuck Todd in pointing out Trump's COVID failure. Greg Palast is back. So the the main topics we're going to cover. At last, Chuck Todd slams Trump enabling Senator Mike Brown, Republican of Indiana. What part of this response is a positive, he asks. And we're going to play that video and explain what that is all about. Michigan Lieutenant Governor decimates the president's defense for COVID response and destruction of the economy. One of the many reasons why single payer matters. for-profit insurers hitting people with illegal bills for COVID-19 tests. A few weeks ago or a few days ago, I gave you that story about a doctor who went to get a COVID-19 test, and what happened? They first told him, oh, he won't have to come with anything out of pocket. Then he gets a bill. Then he get a notice of payment from his insurance company where they charge him $2,000+. And a few weeks later, he gets another bill where they also bill the insurance company another $8,000 for a grand total of $10,000 to get a simple COVID-19 test. Our healthcare system is nothing but a con system, a fraudulent system. And until we get Medicare for all, that is what it does. Capitalism does what it can to maximize its monies. And in the process of doing that, it does everything that it can do legally within the law, that is. And the law is usually fungible enough that it can get away with it. And lastly, Greg Palast discusses his Georgia suppression report for the ACLU. So, okay, let's go ahead and get busy with our first El Primero. Let's go ahead and get our first video out. This is Chuck Todd asking the right question at last. Well, at last, Chuck Todd finally did it. Well, kinda. He had Indiana Senator Mike Braun on, and I like the question that he challenged one of Braun's answers with. So I think we ought to take it. And finally, these people are really hitting these guys with the appropriate questions. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
When it comes to the two most important things, arriving at a vaccine, coming up with therapeutics, have we done that in a way that is quicker and it'll be better? I think unequivocally. I come from Main Street, entrepreneurial world. I think if we had had a different dynamic in place, let's just say Obama, Biden, Harris, we would have relied more on bureaucracy. I've always said pay attention to the experts, but don't let them dictate how you navigate through it. And I think a lot of things have been done well. I think when you look at what Birx and Fauci said back in late February, early March, that the best case scenario would be 150 to 200,000 fatalities. As bad as that sounds, they're on record of saying it, and that's basically where we are. I look at those issues, not what's being interpreted through tabloids, books, because let's face it, there's been a cascade and a litany of that, from the Mueller report to impeachment to COVID and a host of other issues. And you start to lose the marginal benefit or value of whatever that next thing might be.
Senator, I guess the hard part for me is to understand how any part of this response can be seen as a positive when you compare our outcomes to South Korea, to Germany, to France, to Spain, to Italy. We can go down the line. When you compare us to the rest of the Western world, okay? I'm not even talking about developing countries or third world countries. It is, and frankly, we don't know if we're on the right track on a vaccine yet. I hope you're right on this, but I guess I'm pushing back on that is because what part of this response has been a positive? We're all still shut in our houses. We can't go to sporting events 6 months later. In other countries, you can.
Okay, that is important. Now, I didn't even want to hear his response because the statement that Chuck Todd gave was absolute. The first thing this guy said is, the entrepreneurial way of handling it. The entrepreneurial way of handling medical stuff is always going to be a failure because they have to justify profits first, and then they decide to do something that is good for humanity. Profit first, humanity second. So that was a silly answer. But again, we had the facts already. We don't need to ask what the results would have been if we acted differently. Again, we have Korea, we have Europe, and we have all these other countries that have done much better than we were. If they say, it's a smaller country, no. The European Union is larger than the United States, and combined, they have less deaths, less cases than we have in the United States. So that is an absolute fact that we have to hammer into America, because what the pushback has never been consistently is if other countries could do it right, it means that we are doing it wrong. If other countries have substantially better outcomes, it means we are doing it wrong. If we are doing it wrong, the head of our country, who is responsible for how we are doing it, have failed. Let's start by first accepting that this man has failed, that this man is incompetent, that the President of the United States does not know what he's doing, and the fact that he continues to attempt to justify that what he did was correct mean that we won't get a different outcome. It's insanity to believe that doing things the same will give you a different outcome. When he talks about the amount of people that are dead, please remember, no other country has the level of death that we have in America from the coronavirus. So do not be fooled. Get this across. Our president has failed. Our president has no interest in accepting that the way he did things was wrong. And if he believes that doing the same thing over and over again will yield a different result, that is the ultimate definition of insanity, which means we must have a change at the top. Absolutely. So we must have a change at the top. Now, I see a look. Let me first tell you. There's one comment in here that drives me crazy. Love all my viewers, but sometimes some comments drive me crazy. APM from Periscope. APM says people with two brain cells to rub together know the Constitution gives public health to the states. Let's break that down into two pieces because it is so important. Number one, when it comes to humanity, when it comes to saving lives, to hell with the Constitution. If I have to determine if I look at somebody dying or at risk of dying, and I say, oh, let me look at the Constitution. Oh, this document that was written 200 plus years ago does not allow me to do X, Y, Z. I must let you die. That is the most inhumane and silly statement I would have ever heard. But by the way, the good thing about it is that isn't even the case. There's something called the CDC, and the federal government has a lot of input into health, healthcare, etc. That has been proven to work. That has been proven to be constitutional. That's why Obamacare is constitutional, and that's why all these other things that the federal government does in healthcare is, in fact, constitutional. So using an argument that says people with two brain cells to rub together know the Constitution gives public health to the states, but it does not remove public health from the centralization of the federal government for items that it wants to do. So let's be clear here. And not only that, every single state would have been asking and would be asking the federal government for support under this. So please do not buy into the Fox Newsification of failure. Please do not buy into the Fox Newsification of all that hurts you, including the person who wrote the message, APM that is. Okay, let's continue now with the good thing about it, like I said, is people are starting to speak up. The Lieutenant Governor of Michigan came out with a wonderful pushback. I want you guys to listen to that, and then we'll take it on the other side. One of the issues that I have is Donald Trump has gotten too much of a pass because we have not been sufficiently passionate with the facts in stating his failure. Well, the Lieutenant Governor from Michigan, his name is Garlin Gilchrist. I love the way he handled it on MSNBC this morning. Let's listen to him and then take it on the other side.
Lieutenant Governor, if you had known earlier the information that the president had, the severity of it, that it was airborne, that it was very, very deadly, more serious than the flu, the stuff that he was downplaying in public, but getting the truth in private. If you had had that information, and you and Governor Whitmer, what would have you done with Michigan differently?
We acted as soon as we could with the information that we had a month before the virus even set foot in the state of Michigan. And the truth is, we have more than 6,000 people who have died in Michigan, 23 people in my own life. But if the president would have acted a week earlier, 36,000 lives could have been saved. 2 weeks earlier, 52,000 lives could have been saved. And many of those would have been in the state of Michigan. We would have been able to deploy PPE faster. We would have been able to work to get our testing supply. But you have to remember also that while he was lying, I'm not even going to call it downplaying, while he was lying in a dangerous and deadly way about COVID-19, he was also blocking states like Michigan from having the resources that we needed to respond. We did not have and still don't have a national testing strategy. We still don't have a national approach to virus and contact tracing. We still don't have infrastructure for isolation. We've had to create that on the fly in Michigan, and thanks to Michiganders actually listening to the science and wearing masks as we've asked them to in the state of Michigan, because the president refuses to call for that in any consistent or substantive way. He's killing people, and this is something that we cannot tolerate. And in Michigan, we've done everything we can to act in spite of him. Because he hasn't been helpful.
Part of the president's defense, and he said it yesterday, we'll play the soundbite, was that he didn't want prices to go up on PPE. Let's listen.
The job we've done has been incredible, but we don't want to instill panic. We don't want to jump up and down and start shouting that we have a problem that is a tremendous problem, scare everybody. And I'll tell you the other thing, we immediately started buying all over the world. We started buying masks and gowns and everything else, and we don't want to cause pricing to go up to a level that becomes almost unaffordable.
It's ridiculous that anyone still trusts Donald Trump on the economy when he talks about supply and demand. The truth is, the president created a bidding war that set states against one another, trying to bid for personal protective equipment, for ventilators, for vital transport media, and all the things that we needed for testing components. So he created a bidding war, which frankly did break that economy. So that's yet another thing that he failed at in this COVID-19 response. No one should trust him on COVID-19 or the economy that he destroyed with his failed response to it.
And let's remember this, and this is a very important point. He said it all. But let's talk about ventilators. The United States had a contract to build ventilators for under $2,000 or somewhere in that range, okay? And they had a contract with a company to do that. Because they didn't abide by the contract, and they were pretty much, I think it's ProPublica who put this stuff out. What happened then? These same ventilators, they were priced up between $25,000 and $50,000 a piece. It was, again, using that that capitalist system that the earlier senator has spoken about, that the president speaks about, that many on the right like to speak about, using that capitalist system because it's going to make things more efficient. No, what it did is it used coronavirus to create a huge profit center for a select few corporations, just like it's doing right now in retail, just like it's doing right now in food services. All the big boys are taking away all the business from the small companies that are going out of business. We have policies that are destructive. So yes, Donald Trump destroyed the economy, and Donald Trump killed many Americans in the process, not only from the coronavirus, but from the outcomes of a destroyed economy. Absolutely. So from the outcomes of a destroyed economy, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take some of the questions, because we're going to be moving the program into voter suppression from our good friend, Greg Palast. But before we get there, what I want to do is tackle some of the statements here. I think we already handled some of what Michael Rudnan brought up from the Jacobin report. The Jacobin report really points out something really truthful. And this is where money, you feel you get really upset of some people's concern more about money than anything else. Here we have Woodward. He gets an interview with the president. The president points out that the virus is airborne. Okay? Now, it's okay for Woodward to hold that information because he has to let the president do his work for a while. Okay? Now, the president goes out and he starts to talk about opening the economy early. He goes ahead and he starts to tell people, don't worry about wearing masks, that, masks don't work anyway, and all these things the president is telling the American population. At the same time, Woodward knows that the president knows this virus is airborne. Woodward knows that the president knows. So we have a liar as a president. We know he's a liar. So Woodward knows that. Woodward's responsibility as a human being should have been to say, go to MSNBC, ABC, CBS, all of them, and say, hey, I have a tape where the president says this thing is much worse than the flu, and also says this thing is airborne and in the process, and that he's going to downplay it. I am telling you this now because I want to save lives. We would have saved over 100,000 lives if he had gone and put that information out, where the president would have had to backtrack because he could no longer kill people with his petulance. He could no longer kill people because he decides he wants things to look as normal as possible to keep the stock market high. So Woodward, I know Woodward is not the president, but Woodward is not the president, but he was a journalist who had the information. And the journalism is the fourth estate. It is a responsibility of journalists to go out there and inform the people and tell them the truth so that they can know when they've been had by their politicians. That is the definition of journalism. That is what they did when they outed Nixon in the 70s. That is when they were really journalists. Now they're just capitalists. That all those dead people, all the dead people that we have right now, is not only on the back of Donald Trump. Yeah, Donald Trump is responsible as the head of the country, but it's also on the back of Woodward. Woodward is also responsible for the death of all those people. All those people that corrupted the system, the people that didn't make the ventilators that should have been made that were paid for. Yes, they are guilty as well. So anyhow, so that is a spill on Woodward. Let's see what else we have here in the messages. Let's see. Here is we'll talk about that later. I agree. Woodward is. Thank you, Bruce Pollard. I agree with that. Let's see. Paulette Stanzel says, replying, blaming Woodward? Who? The president? Yes, but Woodward is a reporter. And Woodward's responsibility as the fourth estate is to inform us all, not to sit down and watch people die and then says, here's a book right at election time. This should have been done long time ago. Let's see what else is here. Whoa, Egberto wants to throw the Constitution out. If I have to choose between following the Constitution and making sure that somebody lives, you bet your life I'll throw the Constitution out to save a life. And if you don't do that, there's something wrong with your humanity. And that applies to absolutely everybody. If you don't put humanity first, something is wrong. All right, let's see. Daniel Ledo says, 52 weeks too early. What does this guy have, a crystal ball? I don't know what you're talking about, so you may want to clear that up. Michael Rudnan says Trump could have asked the people to wear masks without scaring the people. Well, that's what the other countries did. And look at their results compared to ours. It's simple. Donald Trump is responsible for murdering Americans. Let's not try to sugarcoat it. If Donald Trump had acted differently, a lot more people, including a lot more Republicans, would be alive today. And he should be held accountable for that. There is absolutely no reason for this guy to remain president. Because of dereliction of duty, he has been a failure. Let's accept what it was. Paulette Stansel says Woodward came with the receipt this time. His first book, the president called lies and fake news. So Bob isn't going to do the same and expecting a different result. So he got tapes. He should have released those tapes at the time that he made them, when he was sure that the president was lying to the American people and that these lies would cause deaths. Norman Reynolds says both Bezos and Bolton, who did not stand up to protect the country but went to serve up Trump for his book, are real capitalists. Yes, they are real capitalists. Woodward is the same, real capitalists. That is what they do. Money over humanity. Money over humanity. Understand, people, that that's how it works. Politics done right. We had ventilators. They were not kept up with. Trump got rid of pandemic office and let the supplies get ruined. But still, in as much as these were ruined ventilators, as a ProPublica report stated, we had a contract to build these inexpensive ventilators in mass, which would have allowed us to build them quickly and put them out there. But no, they went for top-of-the-line stuff. That's what it's all about. Daniel Ledo says, I think I'm beginning to understand why Egberto is so wrong and spreads such misinformation. Unbelievably, he actually thinks that the MSM is telling the truth. If I thought the MSM is telling the truth? Please specify what you think that I've stated that was not the truth. It's important. If you're going to make a statement like that, my dear friend, specify what you think is not the truth. Paulette says, don't feed the... Oh, I'm running out of time. Paulette says, don't feed the trolls. If you've noticed influx of negative comments at the top of posts in your newsfeed, Facebook changed its algorithm so the post with the most comments instead of the most likes sits at top. The new Facebook policy is feeding the trolls. There are a couple of things that we can do to help. People need to quit responding to trolls. Then they won't come into the spot. But let me tell you one other thing. I understand all of that, Paulette. You're absolutely right about not feeding the trolls for the Facebook algorithm. But here where we actually speaking, right? Here's the deal. There are a lot of people that believe what some of these trolls are saying. And what we do here is we correct that. And there are other people that are just listening who may or may not believe the trolls, who get enlightening when they hear our commentary. So I hear you, understand you. Thank you for the comment as well. Michael Rudden, the point of mask is to stop droplets when you cough, yell, sneeze. It protects you. You protect me. If everyone wore masks when outside, the pandemic would have been ended in a couple of months or shorter. That's the thing about it. All it took is some compliance. But they talk about, oh, you're messing with my freedom. Yeah, your freedom to infect other people, right? Nanette Bird Smith, Paulette Stansel will do. Let's see, Egberto, 53 days. Yes, Tank, 53 days. You'll be coming back to Politics Done Right and saying Egberto. I guess we got rid of the orange man. Okay, Ledo says, one man's troll is another man's sage. I don't know what you mean by that. But anyway, all the book writing people after the fact. Yeah, thank you, you're right. QAnon, not going to give that. Humanity first, always. Thank you, Milton Gibson, you're absolutely right. Egberto is a seditious. He needs to be shamed. No, I am just a humanist. That's all. I believe in humanity. Paulette Stansel says, yes, Egberto. Woodward is not the president. Bob, his first book, the president called it Lies and Fake. Yeah, I got that, Paulette. And let's see, FB just chose see all comments. Absolutely. Egberto, Paulette, what's up? Okay. Before we go to the next article, to the next topic, I want to remind all of you that that book that you see on the screen right now is my new book, and I would love for you to go out and get my new book. It serves two purposes. It helps in talking to people on the other side. You won't get to all of them. You won't even get to 80% of them, but you'll get enough of them to make a difference. So I ask all of you to consider purchasing my book. It's called It's Worth It: How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. And I just put the link on the screen. You can look for Egberto Willies anywhere on Amazon, and you'll see all the books that I've written there as well. But please go ahead and purchase the book. I guarantee you'll get a lot out of it. It's 231 pages that are very easy to read and give some good ideas, give some stories, etc., etc., etc. So please go ahead and get the book. Please also note that we are accepting memberships at YouTube right now. So if you are listening to us at YouTube, you can either go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Or if you're already watching us on YouTube, just click that join button and become a subscriber to our YouTube channel. And, later on we'll have some nice good goodies and perks for those of you on YouTube who join our channel on YouTube. Just last night, it was enabled by good old YouTube for us to do that. But, of course, I'd like those of you who want to really support progressive media, please consider supporting us at our Patreon. That is politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. That is politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. That way we can continue to do what we have to do to make sure the message gets out, so that all the lies that the president is telling, all the lies that the president's sycophants are telling, all the lies that the president's enablers are telling, we can mitigate it to make sure that people are informed and able to make an intelligent vote in November. Likewise, you can provide us support at politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Shop at our store at politicsdoneright.com/store. politicsdoneright.com/store, where you can get things like our, guess what, our cup with the Politics Done Right logo, a lot of t-shirts, books. All our books are sold there too. Remember, I lost a lot of weight and I'm keeping it off for several years. Lose weight and be fit now. Likewise, as I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, as well as our new book, which is It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Neighbors, and Friends. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with the program. My next guest here is Greg Palast. He's been with us before, but he has some new information to tell us, so here we go. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with our regular Greg Palast, the what I call the voter control master. Anyhow, Greg Palast is known for his investigative reports for BBC, The Guardian, and Rolling Stone. His bestseller includes The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Palast's new book, How Trump Stole 2020, has been released last week. The ACLU published Palast's report titled Georgia Voter Roll Purge Errors. And that's what we want to talk about. Greg, welcome once again to Politics Done Right. How are you doing, my brother?
Getting by in this cruel world.
I know it's a cruel world. First of all, I hope the fire is kind of far and away from you, or the fires.
Well, we have an orange sky and a lot of smoke I'm coughing up. So I see the fire's right near you, right behind you.
Yeah, that is the state of the world right now, Greg. And that is what you and I are going to try. You and I and all those other activists are trying to put out. We're trying to bring some sort of normalcy back to the world.
Whoa, okay. We can do that in a half hour.
Anyhow, look, you came out with a report. And I must say that report it's a well-cited report. It's a well-done report. I'm going to when we get this all processed, I'm going to kind of put some of that in the files as well, in the video as well. Georgia is one of those states that I think should look pretty darn progressives in the near future, and it seems like they've been doing a hell of a big job trying to stop that. Why don't you tell us what your report found?
Okay. Well, and to get to your point, Georgia's now become a white minority state. There's no reason why the Republicans should be in control except through, attacks on voters of color and young voters. That's what's going on. And so I did an analysis for the ACLU of Georgia. We went through the 313,000 names of voters that were removed at the end of last year. That's 1/3 people removed from the voter rolls last year on the grounds that they'd moved, that they left the state or they left Atlanta. Listen, if you don't live in Georgia, you shouldn't be voting in Georgia. It's a crime. So were there 1/3 people that just fled Georgia or Atlanta? Where are the moving vans? We didn't see those. So we asked the experts. There are experts in America who know exactly where every single American lives. These are called advanced address hygiene experts. In addition, you are not allowed.
What is that called? I've never heard of that before.
It's a fancy word called advanced address list hygiene. They clean lists. And who do they do this for? These are specialists, licensed specialists, who do this for companies like Amazon, eBay, American Express, Home Depot. We hired the same people that Amazon uses to make sure that their deliveries are exactly to the right person, and American Express to send their bills to exactly the right person. If you move, they follow you. They don't send it to your old address. They're very good at this. And in addition, you can't use and in addition, in order to remove someone from a voter roll under federal law, you have to use a licensee of the U.S. Postal Service. There's only 19 of them. We hired the biggest one. The state of Georgia apparently broke the federal law and didn't hire an expert. Said they got something like Joe's free list of movers or something. So they removed all these people. And here's what our experts found. Exactly 198,357 persons never moved. Now, you notice the exact number. This is not a sample. We literally went name by name, obviously using some major computing power. We used about over 1,700 data points to determine exactly where Egberto Willies lives. I know where you were last Thursday at 2 p.m. if I want to find out.
Right,
I hate to
right.
say it, there is no privacy. So we have it. But imagine, just short of 200,000 people illegally removed. Now, if it was just anyone being removed random, it would be ugly. It would be awful to take away an American citizen's right to vote because some cockamamie GOP political hack decided that you don't live in Atlanta anymore. So we got their names and addresses, and that were wiped out. Remember, it's the Republican Secretary of State, a scamp named Raffensperger. Now, again, we have every single name and address, and this includes, for example, this is an extension of what we did in 2018. And I was at the Atlanta polls in 2018 in November when I had the prior list, FACO list from the state of people that supposedly moved. One person after another, a great radio personality in Atlanta. I was with him, Raheem Shabazz. He went in to vote. They said, well, you moved. You can't vote here anymore. He says, what? And then Jasmine Bakhtiar, Ashley Smith, who is Latina African-American, thrown out of the polling station. And finally, another person thrown out. I was there. A woman was in tears. I said, what's going on? We have this on camera. Go to gregpalast.com. You can see it. We had Christine Jordan. So this woman was crying because her aunt, Christine Jordan, was just thrown out of the polling station. They said, you can't vote here anymore. You've been removed from the voter rolls. Why? Because she moved her house. So I went to Christine Jordan's house. Christine Jordan is 92 years old. She's been voting in the same place for 50 years. This would have been her 50th year of voting. They said she moved out of her house, or she left. She left Atlanta or whatever. So I went to the house that they said she moved out of, which she'd been in virtually her entire life for nearly a century, okay? And when I went into her house, there was a picture of Martin Luther King at the house having dinner with her. I said, oh, you knew Martin Luther King? She says, well, that's my cousin. He came here every Sunday for dinner after church. This is Martin Luther King's 92-year-old cousin. By the way, you don't have to have a PhD to figure out that she was guilty of attempting to vote while black. And that's the big problem, because the system that they used guaranteed that they will wipe out young voters and African-American voters. So that's the game that's being played. And you know what? And thank you for having me on, because most of our press is pretty lame and ignorant. You know that the big papers, they refuse to run the story. We literally have the names and addresses of these people. We have photos of them. We have discussions of them. We're in the houses of the people where they said they left those houses, literally name by name. We have 240 databases. We have the licensed expert as required by law. The state doesn't. And what was their response? First they said, Greg Palast is a shill of Stacey Abrams. Well, there'd be worse things, I suppose. But I'm not a shill of Stacey Abrams. I'm
Greg,
a journalist.
you just said something that I want to really expand on, because you're talking about why is this not the big story? The big story right now is Donald Trump stating that mail-in voting is a fraud, and if he loses, it's a fraud. That's their big story on voting. The real big story on voting is what your research is coming out with, and this report. And by the way, do I have the authority or the right or the license to post your report on our site?
Absolutely, it is absolutely. In fact, I'd be honored if you'd be hosting the report. And it's actually, you'll get some good pictures. You'll see Christine.
Oh, I have it right.
Jordan.
I have it on the screen right now.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that people understand what they're doing. It's not just Georgia, but Georgia's where this started. That's why I have this book, How Trump Stole 2020, starts in Georgia, because this is where they first began this game of removing hundreds of thousands of voters. And then they took this new system that they have saying people moved. This is brand new. I've beat other systems there. If you remember, I took on something called cross-check.
Right.
Other systems created by a guy named Chris Kobach of Kansas, the white supremacist behind Donald Trump. So, but in this case, we got a new one, a new system created and taken out by a guy named Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp is now the governor. He's the guy that swiped the election from Stacey Abrams because he was the Secretary of State in charge of the voting. He wiped off 500,000 voters off the voter rolls while he was Secretary of State and while he's running against Stacey Abrams. You know, even the Wall Street Journal said this was like shockingly unethical to wipe out your opponent's voters while you're running for election, be in charge of the election. He should have resigned.
I have a question for you. Now you found that these addresses were right there. They should not have been removed from the rolls.
Yes.
Why is it that there isn't a judge that will tell them simply, without these people having to go ahead and reapply, why don't they just put those people right back onto the rolls?
I think that they should. But the problem is, we know what will happen. See, if like the ACLU were to go into court, we are now in September. Mm-hmm. They'll just delay, and I've actually sued this guy, Raffensperger. First I sued Brian Kemp, and I got a federal court order for him to turn over papers, which he still hasn't done. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. And so that's very important.
Yeah. So then you think it'll take too much effort going through the courts, et cetera, before this election. So it's best for these people to know who they are.
Yes. So the most important thing is that we are going to start working with organizations to try to reach as many people as possible. But here's the big one. Everyone listen up. If you're watching this program, listening to this program, this is Greg Palast saying, go to gregpalast.com. Go to gregpalast.com and try.
And it's right here on the screen. So folks, yes. the information on Greg is right below. Go ahead,
okay,
Greg.
So you can get not only the report, but you can go to, there's a link to a site we created called SaveMyVote2020.org. SaveMyVote2020.org. And if you're in Georgia, type in your name and you will see if you've been purged. Then there's a link to re-register. And you got to do it right away. Don't mess around. Do it right away. You can do this online.
We need to repeat that, Greg. We need to repeat that. Folks that are in Georgia, where do they go again?
They can go to either gregpalast.com and get a link, or go to SaveMyVote2020.org. SaveMyVote2020.org, or just to gregpalast.com. And then you could see if you've been purged. You're one of the third of a million. And by the way, everyone that I ran into at the polling station who was purged was shocked. And like Raheem Shabazz, I had a list up before. That's how he found out he was purged. We had Dewan Mitchell, who had just come back, an Iraq war veteran. He comes back from Iraq, and they removed him from the voter rolls. We got him back on in time. Now, but Raheem didn't know, missed his deadline by a day. So they gave him what's called a provisional ballot. You'll love this. So the federal law requires that if you're illegally or wrongly removed from the voter rolls, or they do something to challenge your vote, they don't like your ID or something, they have to give you a law. You have to get one. But guess what? Federal law doesn't require the ballot be counted. So in Georgia, they just throw the ballots away. So you fill it out. You think you voted. It's like a placebo. You think you voted, but you haven't. So it's a placebo ballot, and you throw it away. Now, the thing is, who gets these ballots? And again, it's overwhelmingly young African-American and Hispanic voters are on this list. Hispanic voters are according to MIT and Caltech study. If you're Hispanic, the chance is 300% more likely you'll be shoved to a provisional ballot, which won't get counted as a white person. If you're African American, it's about 270% higher than a white person to get one of these placebo ballots. Now, understand, some placebo ballots get counted. 2.5 million ballots in 2016 were provisional. 2.5 million ballots. But they threw out 935,000. That's almost 1 million ballots were thrown out, overwhelmingly ballots by young people and voters of color. And if you're young and a voter of color, it's about 1,200% higher if you're young and a voter of color than an old white person getting one of these ballots. So, excuse me. And the whole system. Now, again, we're going after Georgia, but if you go to savemyvote2020.org, it has other states which we're going to be putting up quite soon. Michigan, Florida. We're trying to get Ohio. And
so you're doing, I imagine you're starting out with the contested states right now.
Yes, well, mainly because in the contested states is where the GOP has been working like maniacs and Wisconsin to purge voters because they can't win. Look, I'm not partisan. You know, to be honest, if people want to vote in Donald Trump, democracy has
That's
its
what
strange
democracy
effects,
is all
but
about. Yeah,
I'm willing to accept the results of democracy. But I wrote a book called How Trump Stole 2020 because they've already stolen it. We can steal it back. It's a warning, not a prediction. Again, a warning, not a prediction. How Trump Stole 2020. Do I have the book? There you go. I'm going to advertise.
well, you know, you know the link is going to, every time I do a blog post with you, I have the link with one of your books. So I guarantee it's going to be there.
That's the one we need right now, How Trump Stole 2020. You'll enjoy it as a comic book, 48-page comic book in the middle. The destruction of America.
You know, that was kind of funny. That was kind of funny
Yeah.
that I guess you had a subject that was so difficult or subject that was so depressing, you needed to give some humor in the middle, huh?
Well, here's the thing. I want people to read the book. There's great people out there writing on this topic, like the new Jim Crow, et cetera. But it's pretty grim and difficult to get through those books. So
Yes.
I literally wanted to make something that was deep investigative reporting, but done in an entertaining manner. The whole book is done in an entertaining manner. And then in the middle of it, 48-page comic book by Ted Rall, because I want you to get it. I want you to understand it. And I also don't want anyone to despair. Because you know what? They can't steal all the votes all the time. And you can steal back the election. That is, we can bust the burglary. And again, it's not whether you're for or against Donald Trump. It's not right or left. It's right and wrong.
Right.
That's what it's about.
What I like about the book is that, again, the title shocks you, and then as soon as you're done reading it, you get the hope that you need to go out there and get something done.
Yes, and in fact, one of the important parts of the book is what I call the ballot condom at the end. It's not something you slip over your ballot, Egberto. It's something you read the 7 steps to protect your vote. And by the way, for everyone, I want people to go, especially if you're in Georgia right now, go to savemyvote2020.org. But everyone must check their registration. And right now, while we're talking, you can multitask unless you're driving while listening. Please go to your, it's smoke here. It's no joke.
I know,
Board of Election. Go to your Secretary of State in any state or your Board of Elections, County Board of Elections. Every single state allows you to check your registration online, except for South Dakota, where they don't bother with registration because it's really not needed. But you can check your registration online. Now, I can't tell you how many votes of people we've saved by telling people check your registration. I did, and I'm in, hip, cool California, and I looked up Greg Palast and said no such record, no voter. So I re-registered right there online. Voting online may not be a good idea, but registering online is a terrific idea because if you filled out one of those yellow pieces of paper at a DMV at a motor vehicle office, there's up to 40% chance it never got entered into the records. The transfer that just does. People get shafted out of their registrations all the time.
All the time.
And of course, you're being flushed. Like I said, it's 1/3 people in Georgia, but 500,000 people in Ohio. They're threatening in Wisconsin to remove 153,000 voters. I should say, in the state of Wisconsin, there is Scott Walker was thrown out of office by the voters. By the way, that gives you some hope because Wisconsin had as you'll read in How Trump Stole 2020, Wisconsin had some of the absolute worst Jim Crow taxes. This is Wisconsin. These cheese eaters. It's not, it's
right.
like you think.
Yeah, I know.
It's not the deep South here, but actually they had terrible laws because the only way that the GOP can take control of a progressive state like Wisconsin.
And and that's why the elections that are done statewide can go to let's say progressives, while the elections that are in gerrymandered districts somehow give the state legislature a right-wing bias.
Well, that's what happens in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, you have if you added up all the Democratic votes for the state legislature in Wisconsin, the Democrats overwhelm the Republicans in Wisconsin. This is one of the most progressive states in the nation. Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
But they gerrymandered the state legislative line, so the GOP has control. And again, if the GOP wins, if the Republicans win, they were chosen by the voters, I have no problem. But they chose. You shouldn't have the politicians choosing the voters. The voters should choose the political leaders. But in Wisconsin, the politicians drew lines that basically wiped out voters' rights. So they have a GOP legislature. But nevertheless, when you had a statewide vote for governor, Scott Walker was thrown out on his keister. They replaced him with Tony Evers and a guy that I flew and met with, who's a lieutenant governor, a young African-American lieutenant governor who is very concerned about voting rights.
But he's very vocal as well, Greg. That's a good thing about it. He's very vocal, so people are listening.
Yes.
But Greg, let me tell you, we are 50-something days away from the election.
Yes.
You, like I said, you are the voter. You're the voting master in this country right now. You're the one that's put in the most effort, along with the people that you represent, into this voting thing. So I'm going to want you on again. I think you have to register within 30 days of the election.
Every state is different, but it's all states. Most states have a 30-day requirement. That means like about October 4th or 5th. That's it for most states. But,
so I'm going to want you.
Don't wait.
I know you. But that's why I'm about to say what I'm going to say now. I'm going to want you again in about 14 days. So that you can come on with some additional information, so that you can give us a quick synopsis of what people need to do now that we're this close to the election. So do I have that out of you?
You got that, and I want to give you one other piece of advice. If you are going to mail in your vote, and I hope you can avoid it, but if you're going to mail in your vote, you better check your registration, because guess what? If they don't mail a ballot out to you, you can't mail it back in.
Right.
1 in 10 people who request a mail-in ballot don't get them, or don't get them on time, right? So you got to ask now. Good luck. And if you don't get it, you got to go into your Board of Elections. If you don't get it by like October 15, you better go in and get your ballot. But you have to be registered to get it, and don't assume you are registered. 16.7 million people have lost their registration in the past 2 years. 16.7 million. So then check your registration. Ask for your mail-in ballot if you want that. Right? If you want that, I do recommend, if you can, if you're healthy enough, wear mask, gloves, hazmat suit, whatever it takes. Try to vote in person, but early. Most states have early voting. Mm-hmm. And if you go midweek, there's no lines. Then if you wait till election day, that Tuesday,
too late. Yeah,
you're going to be in line 4, 5, 6 hours. I kid you not. This is no joke. This is what we saw in Milwaukee, and I'll tell you why, and what we saw in Atlanta, Milwaukee, Louisville. How does that happen? The answer is people don't get their mail-in ballots because they've been purged off the voter rolls and don't know it, so they don't know why they didn't get their ballot. Or the state slow-walked it to them. The head of the ACLU's husband, she asked for the ballot 45 days in advance. He got his ballot the day after the June primary, the day after the election. So people then end up in line. Don't wait for election day. It's election month, guys. In fact, the election's starting now. Some states you can already mail it in.
Yeah.
And of course, in Texas, you've got some horrendous problems on how to vote. It's also very difficult to vote by mail. I want to warn people, please. You think, mail-in voting, real simple. Just pick and lick. Pick a candidate, lick a stamp. No. You got to make sure that you make no mistakes, because about 1 in 8, that's millions of ballots. 1 in 8 ballots that are mailed in are disqualified on
and
all
make sure your
kinds of technical
signature
grounds.
matches. Make sure your signature matches.
If your signature has to match exactly the one you used to register. And if you don't remember, you better re-register.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so that they have your current signature. If you've moved now under federal law, you can't lose your vote if you move next door or in your neighborhood, usually in your county. But you're insane if you don't re-register. Even if you've moved within your building, you'll never get that mail-in ballot if you've moved an inch. That's one, despite the law. The law says it should get to you, but
Right.
don't count on the law to protect you. You protect you. You got a bunch of
I like that. I like that. That, we don't sit down and wait on the law. We make sure and protect ourselves. Greg, give me a closer.
Okay, well, I want to tell you, stay safe, vote safe, get how Trump stole 2020 so you can steal it back, and go to gregpalast.com, because I will tell you every state as we start adding states to our list of the purge. We're going to create purge list. We're going to reveal these things state by state over the next 2 weeks. So please go to gregpalast.com, and especially Georgia's the first, but it's not the last. We're going to soon have up Wisconsin, Michigan, and Florida, and we'll see how many others we can capture from these scams.
Greg, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Folks, that's been Greg Palast, our voter empresario, making sure that everyone's voting. Thank you so kindly for having been here on Politics Done Right.
Thank you. Let's do it right again. Bye.
Okay, folks, I hope you like that. We only have a minute or so for me to run through this stuff. Yes, Melissa Noble, I'm going to create a separate blog with this interview inside, separated from the rest of the show, so that you can share around and everybody can share around. Let's see what else. Actually, AVQ, I'm glad that the Restreamer is working fine. That's not my doing, though. I must give the credit all to Restream.io. Let's see. I voted in a primary, so I'm good. Great, Nanette. I'm happy that you voted, my dear friend. Gerrymandering and lobbyists must go. Brige MCP, you're absolutely right. Well, I need to call out all my folks. I hadn't done that yet. Okay, welcome aboard, Michael Rudnin, APM. Sean Oviat, let's see, Melissa Noble, Norman Reynolds, Bruce Pollard, let's see, Paulette Stencil, who else is here? Bridge MCP, Daniel Lado, Carlin Birch, para ver quién más está aquí. I got Paulette already. I saw some more in here that I missed. I think I got Nanette Bird Smith. Tank, Tank is my 30-year-old right winger. Okay, Milton Gibson, ¿cómo estás, hermano? Daniel Lado, let's see who else is here. Okay. Paulette Bridge. Who else is here? I just saw a new message come in. All right, Michael Rudnin, I got you all the time. Okay. I think I got everybody. If I missed you, just give a quick message and I'll call you out. Anyway, folks, we are at the end of the show. I just want to remind you to please go ahead and remember to subscribe in one of the manners I gave you before. Please go ahead and consider getting... and I appreciate you being here, Michael Rudnin, not only for your presence, but for all the help that you give everybody in the room as well. So thank you so kindly. Please consider going to Amazon and getting my book. Either just type in my name, Egberto Willies, and you'll see all the books come up, or you can go directly to the link that I just put into the comments. But also, please consider going to Patreon, going to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon to become a patron. And it's very inexpensive to become a YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. Just click on that join button at YouTube. Please let me see a couple of you, 4 or 5 of you, join my YouTube channel. It's it supports the movement. And there's another way to get to it. You can either go hit the join button if you're on YouTube. You can also hit the $ to give us a super chat, or you can go ahead and go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, and by all means visit our store, politicsdoneright.com/store. Yeah, I know you're a patron. We have a lot of patrons in the house, and I thank you so kindly. We got Bruce, we got Michael, we got Reynolds. A lot of you are patrons, and you know what? You guys are the purveyors. You guys are the supporters of independent media. You guys make sure that I can do this. And it's not only the show that we do the show, we have all the blogs that go out there, and I'm going to take 30 seconds to tell you this. The reason I write a whole lot of stuff all during the day, the reason I put out things after things, right, is that the right has a whole lot of people that they pay to put out information so that it overwhelms the search engines, so that if somebody's looking for intelligent information and they do their scan in there, that you get a preponderance of right-wing stuff. We have to get a lot of people, progressive folks, to do the same. Now, we can't afford to do what they do, right? But here's what we can do. We can promote those of us who have the will to go out there and put it out. Yeah, I mean, with the super chat, a lot of the super chat goes to YouTube, but most of it comes to us. But the best deal is to go ahead and subscribe to our channel. I prefer that over super chats. And they just started that with us. But anyhow, folks, we got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. You know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.